Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to take a peek under the cap of a true global giant. So how does a company like Coca-Cola manage to not just survive, but actually thrive when the world is in constant flux and economic pressure is everywhere? Well, we're about to find out. Let's dive in and break down exactly how Coca-Cola is steering its ship through today's very complex world. And we're pulling all these insights straight from the source, their Q3 2025 earnings call. So to kick things off, CEO James Quincey really set the stage by painting a picture of the world they're operated in. And you kind of have to understand this backdrop to get why their strategy is what it is. He basically described a global economy that's really feeling the pressure. I mean, think about it. You've got inflation, you've got shaky trade situations, and just a lot of political uncertainty. All of that puts a real squeeze on people's wallets. And for a company that's everywhere, like Coke, that's a pretty big deal. So you gotta ask, right? With all that turbulence going on, how in the world do they stay on course? Well, the answer lies in what they call their all-weather strategy. It's a game plan that's designed to work whether the economic sun is shining or, the storm clouds are rolling in. And at the very core of this strategy is this really powerful concept they call the strategic growth flywheel. You can think of this as the engine that powers absolutely everything they do. So picture a massive, heavy flywheel. It takes a ton of effort just to get it moving, right? But every single push gives it more momentum. And pretty soon, it's spinning faster and faster, almost on its own. That's the idea behind Coca-Cola's strategy. So what are the big pushes that get this thing going? The first big push, the first thing giving that wheel its power, is their absolutely unparalleled portfolio of brands. And this isn't just some long list of drinks. It's a real strategic weapon for them. And listen, when the CEO throws around a word like unparalleled, you might think, okay, sure, corporate buzzword. But nope. In this case, the numbers, well, they tell a pretty incredible story about just how dominant they are. 30. Just let that sink in for a second. That's 30 separate brands, and each one of them hauls in over $1 billion in revenue every single year. I mean, the scale of that is just staggering. And to really put that number into perspective for you, their $30 billion brands make up about a quarter of all the brands of that size in the entire beverage industry. That is almost double what their closest competitor has. And having that kind of scale, it's a huge advantage. It gives them more clout with retailers, way more choice for you and me, and just makes their marketing incredibly efficient. Okay, so let's move on to the next big push on that flywheel, because, it's one thing to just have a lot of brands, but it's a whole other challenge to make people genuinely love them. And that's where marketing and innovation come in. They're totally revamping their marketing playbook. So think less about old school TV commercials and way more about creating these really cool, personalized digital experiences that are part of the culture. They want to build real connections, not just sell you a drink. And you can see this in action all over the place. I mean, from a massive Fanta Halloween campaign that ran in 50, that's 50, countries, to something super specific and local like a special Powerade in South Africa to celebrate their rugby team. It's this brilliant mix of being huge and global, but also personal and local at the exact same time. All right, now for the final piece of the puzzle, the one that really ties it all together. Because let's be honest, you can have the world's best brands and the smartest ads, but if you can't actually get the product into people's hands efficiently, none of it matters. Now, a massive part of their execution strategy has been this decade-long mission to re-franchise their bottling operations. So what does that actually mean? Well, instead of owning all the bottling plants themselves, they're partnering up with strong local companies that know their home turf inside and out. And hey, this isn't just some theory they're talking about on a slide. They just made two huge moves recently. They solidified a major partnership in India and are setting up a massive acquisition in Africa. We're talking about the final critical chess moves to complete this enormous strategic shift. Okay, so we've got this impressive flywheel, the portfolio, the marketing, the execution. But the million-dollar question is, does it actually work? Does it deliver? Well, the numbers, they really do speak for themselves. Check this out. For 18 straight quarters, let me do the math here, that's 4.5 years in a row, Coca-Cola has been grabbing a bigger and bigger slice of the total beverage market pie. In an industry this competitive, that kind of consistency is just unreal. And this chart right here, it really shows you just how financially resilient this company is. So they grew their earnings per share by 6%, which is solid. But what's wild is that they did this even with a 6% headwind from currency issues. I mean, think about that. They had to run 6% faster just to stay in the same place, and they still managed to grow another 6% on top of that. That's impressive. So the big takeaway here is pretty simple, right? By being absolutely relentless with this flywheel strategy, strengthening their portfolio, being creative with marketing, and perfecting their execution, they've built a growth engine that just keeps on spinning, even when the economic winds are blowing right in their face. Which leaves us with one last kind of fascinating thought. When you've engineered a growth machine that is this powerful, this self-reinforcing, what could possibly slow it down? Is it a competitor, or is the biggest challenge just keeping this massive global flywheel spinning at full speed? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.